Meanwhile, the other breaking news from all of the Trump-Russia stuff is that apparently Rudy Giuliani has now joined the team. Rudy Giuliani, of course, was very close with the Trump campaign. He was very involved in the Trump campaign. He has a very close and weird relationship with President Trump going back years. In fact, here's some early audio and video of President Trump, then just Donald Trump with the mullet. I mean, really, business in front, party in back. And Rudy Giuliani, this is about 1990, I believe.
You know, you're really beautiful. And a woman that looks like that.
Rudy Giuliani is dressed in a wig and fake boobs, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Maybe you could tell me what you think of this set.
This is a thing that
this
happened.
may be the best of all.
Oh, Me Too moment.
Boy, you. Oh. Donald, I thought you were a gentleman.
Okay, and then Trump actually says, well, you can't blame me for trying, or at least I tried. And then later, apparently, he would talk about this with Billy Bush, right? He moved on Rudy Giuliani very heavily. He moved on like a bleep. Okay, in any case, everything is very weird. Rudy Giuliani is joining the team because Giuliani does have some legal knowledge. Obviously, he was a prosecutor, and so he's joining the legal team in an effort to try and negotiate an end to the Mueller probe. That doesn't seem wildly out of bounds. It doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility either, because I'm not sure that Mueller actually has anything so far as this Russia collusion stuff goes. And the obstruction case is extremely weak, if by obstruction you mean that he fired James Comey. Even James Comey can't say that it was obstruction. Makes it very difficult to claim that there was serious obstruction by Team Trump. Now, again, the real danger to President Trump is not that. The real danger to President Trump is in the Michael Cohen stuff, in the fact that his personal lawyers' offices were raided on the basis of supposed campaign finance violations. Alan Dershowitz, who's been, a pretty strong legal ally for President Trump throughout this process, he says that President Trump has to assume that people are going to flip on him.
Prosecution has an enormous leverage. They can charge you with a dozen crimes, even if they're relatively technical crimes, that accumulate with the guidelines and tell you you're going to never see freedom again. You're going to serve the rest of your life in prison. That kind of pressure brings about not only singing, but sometimes composing. I think the president has to assume that his closest friends, his greatest associates, the people he trusts the most, if exposed to the pressure, the risk of life imprisonment, will flip. That has to be his working assumption.
Okay, so then the question becomes, what exactly does Michael Cohen have on President Trump? Maybe the answer is nothing. But that's the place where Trump really has vulnerability legally. The Mueller investigation is going to come to nothing, and I think that Trump knows that. I think Team Trump knows that. I think that's why they're being cooperative with Mueller. I think that's why Trump is really not concerned with firing Mueller, because all of that, after a year and a half of this nonsense, will finally come to an inglorious end. It'll really be on the Michael Cohen investigation. Democrats are now going to have to shift their hopes from Trump-Russia collusion to Michael Cohen engaging in some sort of illegal activity with Trump in order to push their impeachment hopes. Okay, so meanwhile, I just have to tell you the story, and then we'll get to the mailbag, because I want to do some mailbagging it up today. But this is an amazing story. So you remember that D.C. lawmaker, Trayon White? So Trayon White is a Democrat from Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. He's a council member. And he had said, if you recall, that the weather was controlled by the Jews. He had blamed the Jews for the weather in Washington, D.C., which is a real weird thing. Like, we, the Jews, the Juden, we control many things, but we do not control the weather. As far as I'm aware. If not, I'll have to talk to the elders of Zion about it at my Friday night meeting. I mean, it's already Friday, so I figure tonight we'll get together and we'll talk about whether we can control the weather, because if so, then there are a few places that ought to be hit with lightning. But if not, it's real weird. So Trayon White, in an attempt to do penance for this, went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. So he said that he apparently spent some time on this tour, and it got very weird. So he suggested that an image of a German girl being marched through the streets of Norden in 1935 as humiliation for an alleged relationship with a Jew was actually depicting her being protected by Nazi troops surrounding her. Here's a picture of a German woman wearing a sign around her neck, being paraded through the streets. And the sign says, "I slept with a Jew," basically. And this idiot, Trayon White, actually thought that this was the Nazis protecting this woman from the population outside, which is very, very weird. And that's when the museum experts pointed out that this was untrue. And then it apparently got weirder and weirder. Apparently, he suggested that the Warsaw Ghetto was a gated community. Like, I'm not joking about this. This is an actual thing that happened. So he said that he saw a picture of the Warsaw Ghetto. He said, "Oh yeah, it's just like a gated community." No, it was more like a giant open air prison. So there was that. That's why there's an uprising there. I love that he did this like on the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Just tremendous awareness here. The other thing that I love about this, of course, is that the national media coverage has been relatively scant. So it was covered by the Washington Post, it was covered by Mediaite, but if this had been a Republican lawmaker of any caliber, it would be all over the front pages of every newspaper that this person went to a Holocaust museum and thought that the Warsaw Ghetto was a gated community. I mean, just absolutely asinine, but demonstrating once again that political correctness only runs in one direction.